Hey guys, going live again. Gonna give just a few moments for folks to come online. Hopefully, I know it's a little bit later in the morning here in the States. Don't know, maybe if I'll catch some folks other areas throughout. Wanted to talk today about something that kind of hit my heart. Spirit kind of talked to me and wanted me to share, so give just a couple moments and see if anybody's able to join, and if not, then that's okay. We'll get started, and I'll go ahead and share, and hopefully some folks will be able to catch the replay. I think that this is going to speak to some folks who are kind of going through some of the same things. I know that myself and at least a few of my friends around the same age group are experiencing. So I was doing some work this morning, and this kind of spoke to me, so I wanted to come online, and Spirit kind of asked me to share some things, so I wanted to come online and speak to that. So I'll give just a moment, maybe give some time. Hey Travis, congratulations on all of the things that are going on in your life. So I was doing some work this morning, doing preparation work for graduation. We have a high school graduation going on in my life. My youngest daughter is graduating high school on Friday. And I've done really good not to cry about any of it yet. So I'm going to try really hard not to do that still. But I was doing some work this morning to get ready for her graduation and also her graduation party that's coming up in a couple weekends. And it really kind of hit me that she's the last one, and that there's been kind of this cycle. She's the last one of mine of 4. And it's kind of this, there's kind of this cycle that parents go through as your children grow up and they grow out of the home. And as I was doing this little project this morning, getting her cap and gown ready for her, Spirit spoke to me and just asked me to share with everybody kind of what that experience has been for me. And maybe hopefully it's relatable for some people, and maybe it's something that can help some people that are gonna be going through it, or that maybe are going through it, because it can be a very isolating process to experience if you are a single parent, first of all. But also, I can imagine, even if you are married or in a relationship, I can also imagine that it is still challenging, because you are going through a grieving process. It is a process of loneliness and grief when your children begin to leave the home, and you begin to experience this process where, even though you may be proud, you still are losing this almost sense of daily purpose, because even in a marriage, you form your life and your cycle around your children. And even though you may, have a really great commitment to your partner, there's still a schedule, and there's still a timeline that you form around your children. And even as a single parent, you do the same thing. So that loss of daily purpose starts to set in, and there's suddenly no need for things like, do I need to make sure that things are done on almost a project management level? And, because you're not doing things necessarily anymore, like giving them a ride to, soccer practice or to anything like that anymore. But you are making sure that at a high level, everything is taken care of the way that, it should be executed for them. So, the kind of purpose that you have had starts to be, minimized even greater. And that leads to these communication gaps that you have. And the gaps that you have make things even like grocery shopping so challenging, because you're like, okay, well, are they going to be home, or are they going to be at this other place for however long, maybe they're staying somewhere else now for however many days, and you don't really know if they're going to be home. And from a communication perspective, they live wherever they're going to live. Sometimes you got to just kind of try to communicate, because they're trying to like spread their wings and get out on their own and do their own thing. But it's like, how do you give them the freedom that they're looking for, and also maintain the things like being able to cook for them if they're going to be home, without having to like at the last minute always go to the grocery store when they show up at 6:30 for supper and they want to cook and have food like right then, because that's always what's going to happen. So yeah, so like there's these communication gaps, and you like want to pull your hair out, but you also want to like hold them and just be with them, because it's like, I don't get to see you anymore, I want to be with you. And it like leads to all this worry and anxiety, and you're like, how can I even keep track of you? You are like the only thing that I, have ever loved in my life, and I can't even keep track of you now at this point. There's like such distance between us. And at some point it seems like I have to just detox that, right? I have to just let go of that. And for me, it was really like, so, 4 kids, like every couple of years, like going through this every couple of years. And with my third son, I like finally figured it out, I think. Kind of like, okay, this is going to happen again with my youngest. And so this time around, I have been like much more prepared to like handle all of that like grieving process, so that, I'm able to move through it, right? But also understand like each of these phases a little bit better, and acknowledge each one of them, and I feel like this is the reason why I was supposed to like talk about this a little bit. Sorry, I'm gonna take a drink. Thank you guys so much for joining. I know it's kind of a difficult time. So, in that kind of detox of like what what you kind of go through, like what I was going through, it's like, what do you have then at that point? For some people, you do have a partner, and you can lean into one another, and you start to do like stuff, Brenda, I see you online. I see you do things with Randy. You guys are such a phenomenal couple. I love your love for each other. And it's an inspiration to see like the foundation that you guys have and the way that you have been able to build further and further. And so some couples do that. They are able to like pivot and like lean into each other and continue to build in that direction. And I think fundamentally we all want to be able to do that. And then I think sometimes, unfortunately, the transverse happens that sometimes couples identify that they really don't really have a lot in common after all, and kind of go their separate way then, unfortunately, and that is an obvious reality of the situation. For people that are single, like myself, I very much kind of had a choice I had to make it at this point in time, especially after my third son. And I'll talk about that in a different live at some point, but it came with this kind of detox where I was like, where I couldn't micromanage things anymore because nobody was there to micromanage, right? And I was able to then move my relationship with them in a different way. The bond was still there, but it shifted. The frequency was different. The frequency was more like, I could feel their absence energetically, but I could reach out to them, and we were still in communication then. And what they needed from me, they were able to get. And then, it was up to me then to make sure they knew that I was in need of something from them, if that was the case. So there was a very big energetic shift in our relationship, and I was able to understand that it was really like a different type of responsibility and parenting that I had at that point. And it was like a higher level that I moved to parent them. It was a different frequency shift at that point. And from an energetic perspective and like a spiritual perspective, I would say like our soulful relationship was evolving because of the absence of our connection, like our physical connection, and sometimes of the absence of our communication. So yeah, that relationship shifted, and I began to also feel and understand some of my parental lessons. So like my parental lessons came to me also. Like I'm going to tell you a story. My son was my oldest son. He's so wise. He's like wise beyond his years. All of my kids are kind of like super, super cool, wise kids. I know I'm biased, but my oldest son, we were driving to the park one day, and we had his oldest daughter with him, and we were talking about like all of the cool things that he does with and for his daughter. And he only had one kid at that point. And I was commenting about how proud I was of him for all of the initiatives that he takes with her, and how he really does things like fundamentally different than the way that I did things with him and the way that his dad and I parented him, and how he and his wife really have this different level of tolerance and this different level of patience and this whole different like parenting approach, and just totally different. And so we were having this dialogue and this conversation about it, and he made some comments back to me about how, like, it was not wrong, but not right about how I parented, and that there were some things that he didn't really like, but he understood. And it was like a conversation to me that I felt and took away as a parental lesson, because I could tell that in his adult years, it was something that he reflected on and was able to build from. So while it was kind of painful for me to hear some of that, walking away from, like, well, damn, I should have done that better. But he was able to still do better from it. So that parental lesson shift kind of occurred for me, and I was able to kind of process it then, and hear and start to hear those kinds of things from the point at where our relationship had evolved and our ability to connect. And that was happening kind of across the board with him. And then, his other brother had graduated, and it was kind of happening at that point with him too. So, it's kind of a evolution, I think, also of the age of the kid, as that happens too. So for me then, it was like we were stepping into this period also of being able to find the next version of me then, because I was like, okay, we're kind of working through, the understanding and the past of what has happened with each other, and that evolution of the timeline. And so now there's kind of opportunity for me to do something for me, because I have all this time. And what do I want to do with it? And, a lot of times that, especially as a single person, gives a lot of opportunity for growth, for expansion, for reflection. In couples, it gives opportunity for things like growth and expansion, and for each other to lean in and, maybe do things that are dreams that you have thought about for, decades that you have maybe been together. So that spiritual kind of loneliness that I had been experiencing was able to kind of be explored at that point, and kind of that version of what next was able to be tapped into. And then that ability to kind of juggle the what next is kind of really where I am right now, because I did step into the what next. And for me, the what next was several things. It was a career change. It was a major relationship change. It was a move. It was a lot of things. So it was a major spiritual alignment. It was a lot of things. So yeah, I think for a lot of people, they're going through this kind of process and experience of, their kids kind of, I call it aging out, where they are transitioning out of the home, and, there's that grieving process that's associated with it. And for me, I did go through that cycle now 4 times. This is the 4th time that I'm experiencing it. The first really 3 times were the hardest. The first 2, I didn't really understand what I was going through. And I processed each time, each cycle, a little bit different, and had, different variations, and, things that had, different outcomes with each one. But, the thing that I would say is, you are going to experience this in your own way. Grief is not linear. There there are a lot of opportunities to stay in contact, to stay in alignment with yourself, to really connect with your higher self, so that you can not necessarily feel so lost, if that's kind of where you are right now. I know that for me, those first few times when I was kind of going through that, I felt really lost, especially that third time. I was like, why is this happening? Why? And I just felt really alone. But you're not alone if this is kind of how you're feeling, if you're kind of going through that grieving process. And I would also point out that the other time of year that this really, really felt hard for me was in August-ish time frame, when kids go off to college, because that's, when kids really, really, really leave the house. And that's the other time of year whenever it really hit me hard, not just at graduation time, but then when they actually leave the house. So yeah, I would say, thanks for watching. If you are called to do it, I have free soul alignment that you can check out the link in my comment section for, and or somewhere. I'm not really very good at this, guys. It's going to be in the links or something. But you can sign up for a free soul alignment session, and we can talk about, what your experience is if you're going through something like this. Or if you know somebody that is, and you think that it would be good for them to talk about this with me, send them my way. Like I said, I've been through this a few times, and these are the types of things that I work through with people as they're navigating these types of life changes. And then I also have the group that you can join. That's the Gifted and Grounded Soul Alchemy Circle. So if you can join that, and we offer a lot of support in that group, and information and content that helps bring people into alignment, and also just nurtures the soul and any mental health or health needs that you may be going through. So yeah, like I said, this was my experience. I hope that in sharing it, it helps you or someone that you may know. And I love you guys very much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk with you again very soon. Bye.